Good afternoon, and welcome to the DCTV News at Noon program.
This program is brought to you by the Southwest TV Translator Association and supported by the Dolores County Broadcasting Network on DCTV.
The News at Noon program is the best assembly of news and local weather for the Four Corners region. Give us your feedback and news alerts at 677-4119.
With all that said, I'm Kendra Cook, and my co-hosts are Kelsey Kiesling and Jerry Tope. And now, here's what's in the news for you for May 25th, 2016. From the Cortez Journal. There will be a public meeting on the Rico West Dolores Roads and Trails Plan June 2nd from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Dolores Community Center. U.S. Forest Service staff will be on hand to discuss various options for trail use between the West Fork of the Dolores River and Lizard Head Pass. The options are part of a draft environmental impact statement released May 5th. Public comments are being sought on the various options and are due by June 20th. The plan focuses largely on proposed changes for single-track motorcycle use, in some cases taking away access and in others adding access. Additional ATV-UTV trails are also proposed. Rico residents have expressed concerns about motorcyclists accessing town via the Burnett Creek Trail and road, then riding through residential neighborhoods to reach Colorado Highway 145. Motorcyclists have said that they value the convenient access to Rico from Burnett Creek. To accommodate both concerns, Alternative CD&E proposed to redirect motorcyclists from the Burnett Creek Trail to the Rio Grande Southern Railroad bed via a new trail connector. From there, they can cross the Montelores Bridge to Colorado 145 and ride a short distance north to Rico. Alternative B would eliminate motorcycle access from the West Ridgeline into Rico by making Burnett Creek and Horse Creek non-motorized. 4 alternatives preserve single-track motorcycle use on the entire length of the Calico Trail. However, Alternative E proposes to close the northern portion. The Winter Trail and a portion of Wildcat Trail are now open to motorcycle use, but would close to all motorized use in all but Alternative A. Proposals vary for the Bear Creek Trail. Currently, motorcyclists are allowed to ride Bear Creek, Little Bear Creek, Gold Run, and Grindstone trails, but several alternatives propose to limit or eliminate their use there. Ryman Creek and East Fork trails are open to single-track motorcycle use and would remain open under Alternative A, but would be closed to motorized in all other alternatives. The East Fork Trail remains open to motorcycles in alternatives B, C, and D, but they would be prohibited in Alternative E. Some alternatives add single-track motorcycle use, including at Loading Pen and Tenderfoot trails. Another proposal links single-track motorcycle trails between Stoner Mesa and Taylor Mesa via a Spring Creek Trail extension. The Forest Service is also proposing timing restrictions on motorized uses to benefit wildlife and hunters. It sounds like one needs to sit down with the maps and alternatives to really appreciate the differences and make a sound response.
According to the Cortez Journal, a masked gunman intending to steal a large amount of marijuana shot and killed a Fort Lewis College student early Tuesday in a home invasion-style shooting in the Sky Ridge subdivision, northeast of Fort Lewis College, police said. 4 Arizona men have been arrested in connection with the death of Samuel Zarius Gordon, 20 of Cortez, said Lieutenant Ray Shoup of the Durango Police Department. He said Gordon may have been reaching for a flare gun when one of the robbers shot him. Cody Maz E. Quatley, 19 of Phoenix, Alvin Noel Flores, 22 of Phoenix, Daniel Nelson Wright, 20 of Phoenix, and Quatleco Garcia, 21 of Scottsdale, Arizona, were arrested on suspicion of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and aggravated robbery. They were being held without bail Tuesday night in La Plata County Jail. According to police, Gordon was known by Quatley, who believed Gordon had a large amount of marijuana at his home at 253 Jenkins Ranch Road. Quatley allegedly devised a plan with his 3 accomplices to enter Gordon's home through an unlocked sliding rear patio door and rob Gordon of his marijuana, police said. 3 men armed with handguns entered the home about 3:30 a.m. wearing bandanas over their faces. 5 people inside the home, including Gordon, were taken hostage at gunpoint. One of the victims was bound with zip ties and 2 were ordered to lay face down at gunpoint, according to police. During a phone interview Tuesday, the man expressed shock that his friend was involved in a homicide investigation. He says he knows Quatley from attending Fort Lewis College. He didn't know any of the other 3 suspects or the victims. He described Quatley as a gentle soul who played guitar and made coffee for a living. He is outdoorsy, easily approachable, and cares about people, he said. Anyone with any information related to the case is asked to call a tip line at 382-5029.
From the Durango Herald, education leaders met in Denver on Tuesday to highlight a growing crisis around teacher shortages, especially in rural Colorado. In 2014, only 1,000 teachers graduated from Colorado colleges with credentials in elementary education, according to the Teach Strong campaign, which is working nationally to recruit teachers. By next school year, Colorado will need 4,500 new teachers. Nearly 5,500 teachers in Colorado will retire this year, and only about 2,000 students will graduate with teaching degrees from universities in the state. Colorado has seen 5 consecutive years of decline in teacher enrollment. This year, lawmakers made some progress addressing the problem. They sent the governor a bill that would provide $500,000 for incentives to drive teachers to rural Colorado. The legislation would create education training programs through coordinators at colleges in rural parts of the state, provide stipends to offset tuition costs for student teachers who agree to teach in rural schools, establish programs in rural areas to identify high school students interested in teaching, and provide money to teachers in rural districts who pursue national certifications. But officials and education leaders agreed Tuesday that much more needs to be done. Part of the Teach Strong campaign is elevating the prestige of teaching, noting that millennials are less attracted to the profession than other generations. A public policy polling survey released Tuesday revealed that 58% of Coloradans believe the shortage of teachers is a major problem, yet fewer people are driven to the profession. Teach Strong underscores a collaborative approach on several principles, from recruiting more teachers to creating career pathways that give teachers opportunities to lead and grow.
According to the Durango Herald, Durango's housing policies received high praise in the national media last week. A piece by City Lab, a publication from The Atlantic, headlined a story on Durango's secondary housing units, how one Colorado city instantly created affordable housing. It caught the attention of Durango Herald readers, and it was posted on the City of Durango's Twitter account. The piece was based on a popular presentation city planners gave at a conference in Phoenix about recently revamped policies governing secondary housing units, such as granny flats and garage apartments. The story, while flattering to our department, had a number of misstatements, said Greg Hotch, the former director of community development. Hotch recently stepped down to a planner emeritus role, but he led the department while the housing policies were crafted. The headline doesn't match the story, which points out how the secondary unit policy faced well-organized opposition. There were other problems and inaccuracies, including a statement that 5 unrelated people can live in a secondary unit, Hotch said. However, the process the city created to legalize ADUs by registering them and paying the fees that were in place when the accessory dwelling units were built has been influential among planners, Hotch said.
From the Cortez Journal, Americans in different parts of the country are known to vary significantly in their consumption of particular foods, be it spicy chili, cream cheese-covered bagels, or collard greens. Recent federal government data shows that the country is equally diverse in its consumption of intoxicating substances. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration annually surveys Americans aged 12 and older about whether they are using opioid painkillers for non-medical reasons or consume any marijuana, alcohol, or cocaine. States are ranked into quintiles based on what proportion of their population uses each substance, thereby creating a top 10 list for all 4. Colorado stands out as the only state which is a top consumer of all 4 substances. The state's heavy consumption of marijuana is predictable given that the drug is legal here. The other 3 legalization states are heavy consumers of pot too, but residents of the Mile High State are also heavy consumers of all non-marijuana intoxicants as well. Northern New England is another notable concentration of heavy use, with a cluster of states that are top consumers of multiple substances. Although the opioid overdose crisis in that part of the country has attracted extensive attention, none of the New England states is among the nation's highest for non-medical consumption of prescription painkillers. Instead, Vermont, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire are leading consumers of alcohol, marijuana, and cocaine, with Maine and Connecticut also being leaders in 2 of those 3. New York, in contrast, is a top consumer of only cocaine. Like Colorado, Washington, D.C. is a center of extensive substance use despite not being in a particularly heavy consuming part of the country. Despite being different from northern New England in almost every aspect, the District of Columbia has similar substance consumption patterns, ranking among the nation's leaders for cocaine, alcohol, and marijuana use. As the most religious region of the country, the Southeast and Bible Belt have long tended to have lower consumptions of intoxicating substances, particularly alcohol, than the rest of the country. Yet non-medical painkiller use is an exception to this general rule, with most of its top consumers being in or near this region: Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Virginia, Maryland, and Ohio. The Midwest and Plain states are not leading consumers of any of the three illicit drugs, but Wisconsin, Minnesota, and North Dakota are all national leaders in their proportion of drinkers, continuing a pattern established during the period of heavy migration from Scandinavia and beer-loving, beer-brewing Germany. Turning to the West, three neighboring states are notable for their substantial consumption of cocaine: California, Arizona, and New Mexico, which is likely facilitated by their being on the border across which the bulk of this drug is imported into the U.S. Arizona is also a leader in non-medical use of opioid painkillers.
According to the Cortez Journal, Bob Zradnik became an employee of the Southern Ute Indian tribe as the reservation was on the brink of an energy renaissance, which was the spark that contributed to the tribe's multi-billion-dollar net worth. But after 28 years of facilitating great strides in energy resource development and investments for the tribe, the Southern Ute Growth Fund's operating director is retiring. In 1988, Zradnik was a senior engineer for Exxon in New Orleans, when he was told he would be transferred to the worst place on earth, West Texas. Instead, he left for Durango, where he had spent most of his free time when he worked in a Farmington oil field years ago. Zradnik planned to work as a freelance writer, pitching articles to Runner's World and outdoor magazines, but found that pursuit was neither consistent nor profitable. But the tribe was hiring, and he became its first engineer. With his knowledge, the tribe began to buy back leases with no help from skeptical investors. Zradnik developed a plan of action for Red Willow, the tribe's oil and gas development company, which was established in 1992 with an initial investment of $8 million. Zradnik subsequently launched an initiative to assemble an extensive geologic database detailing resources throughout the reservation. It was the tribe's gateway to successful extraction. But over the past 2 years, as extractive resource development has been scaled back and oil and gas prices sank, mass amounts were cut from the capital budget. Zradnik declined to provide specific figures about the fund's net worth, profits, and losses. Meanwhile, the tribe is in the early stages of developing a supplemental environmental impact statement to allow fracking on 4 shale formations on the reservation and up to 1,500 wells. But Zradnik won't be around for that venture. He expects to leave his position before July. He's eyeing a future filled with trout, not extractive resources, with plans to spend retirement fishing. And now, here's our weather report.
As you can see, the satellite doesn't show much moisture in the faint clouds. The incoming low pressure system is to give an alleged 10% chance of showers for the day tomorrow and 20% for the night. There is a closed low within this low pressure system that is to be over us by tomorrow morning, and the theory is that afternoon heating is supposed to stir the moisture into the pot. Gusty afternoon winds are to continue today and with the chances of precip tomorrow. The best chance of precip tomorrow is at the peaks and highest elevations of the San Juans just east of us as far as the Four Corners area is concerned. As Thursday afternoon and evening goes on, cloudiness will increase and our chance here in Dove Creek area begins. But no one has bet on even 1/100th of an inch for us so far. Winds are supposed to abate a bit for tomorrow and then speed up again Friday and then be at speeds near this afternoons on through the 31st. So we live in the high and dry as per usual, dry clouds and wind. There is one model that shows some moisture developing over Southern California this weekend with real wetness, and yet it appears that the weaving about of the jet stream is supposed to keep moisture to the north and away from us for the following days. Could somebody just occasionally shoot that darn jet stream down or something? But it is expected to give unspecified amounts of precipitation in parts of California. Also in the northwest coast and the northern Intermountain region, Great Basin and northern central Rockies by this evening, with activity increasing Thursday and the weekend as it moves through those areas. By Thursday, it will have extended into the northern central high plains. That same upper level trough that's driving our weather will affect the upper Midwest by tomorrow evening, combining with the Gulf of Mexico moisture stream that has been the source of lots of rain for the central plains and other parts. It will continue to provide tons of showers and thunderstorms. I know a lot of Dolores County residents have roots in Oklahoma and Texas, so if you still have family in that part of the country, listen to this. Notice the increasing size of the yellow areas of severe thunderstorms and those 3 red flash flood areas. Sources are warning for tomorrow, Thursday, that large hail, possibly larger than 3 inches in diameter, gusts of 70 miles an hour with tornadoes being the risk within stronger cells, are a real possibility. For south central Texas, up through Oklahoma and Kansas and into Nebraska tomorrow. And that it will migrate with an easterly direction for Friday. So the pattern that has provided so much moisture for all those states east of Colorado will continue with no let-up for at least the next 3 days. For our 5-day forecast, high temps for the next 5 days are at 67 tomorrow, climbing to 77-ish by Sunday and Monday. Lows begin at 36, then barely plus or minus of 40. Cloudiness and gusty winds. Yep, enjoy any let up in the winds you notice. It won't last long. Now back to the news.
According to the Cortez Journal, supporters of a legislative effort to allow the sale of full-strength beer, wine, and liquor in grocery stores are worried that the governor might veto the bill. Standing inside the Capitol on Tuesday, the coalition called on a skeptical Governor John Hickenlooper to sign the measure, which would gradually allow supermarkets to purchase liquor licenses over 20 years. The compromise legislation passed this month in the waning days of the legislative session represents the most impressive effort yet inside the Capitol to allow the sale of full-strength alcohol in grocery stores. Organizations normally at odds with each other came together, including smaller liquor stores, distillers, wholesalers, several craft brewers, and distillers. But King Soopers, Safeway, and Albertsons continue to push forward with a ballot initiative that would allow full-strength beer and wine sales in all grocery stores. The effort could clash with the legislation. Under the bills, grocery stores would be allowed to gradually purchase 20 licenses through 2037. After that, stores would be allowed to obtain unlimited licenses. The bill would also draw a radius of 1,500 feet around existing liquor stores and require grocery stores to buy out liquor stores to obtain licenses within that zone. The bill passed with widespread support in the legislature.
From the Fence Post, small-time chicken producers in Colorado can say goodbye to the middleman. The Colorado legislature passed Senate Bill 58, giving more flexibility for small-scale chicken producers and those who make pickled vegetables to sell straight to consumers rather than having eggs or poultry processed by a third party. For chicken producers, those who sell eggs can now sell up to 250 dozen eggs per month. Producers also can slaughter poultry themselves or locally as long as the farm is limited to 1,000 birds. The consumer interest was the driving force for the bill. There's an option for chicken farmers to sell locally with one less step if they choose. However, it's unknown how many producers, if any, will take advantage of the new law. Food safety has come into question with the number of recalls lately, including one of 4.6 million pounds of cooked chicken. Pilgrim's Pride recalled products from its Waco, Texas facility due to potential outside material contamination in the chicken, including plastic, wood, rubber, and metal. Even with the oversight, there is still potential for contamination. That's where education comes in. Emily Eibach, Director of State Affairs for the Colorado Farm Bureau, said the organization followed the bill, but didn't take a side as long as a key component remained on the bill. Eibach said, "To us, we were simply just following the bill to ensure that the food safety clauses stayed stayed in. The food safety clause requires producers to take a certified food safety class so they know of the risks and harms that can come from foods. Food safety, that might be my biggest concern, whether it be eggs or poultry, she said.
According to the Durango Herald, the City of Durango and the Colorado Department of Transportation uprooted vegetation growing in raised medians at U.S. Highway 550-160 near the Doubletree Hotel and replaced it with fist-sized river rock. No trees, no bushes, just stones. Is it the nicest intersection in the state? Maybe not, said Levi Lloyd, Director of City Operations, but I think it probably looks a lot better than it did with the weeds in there. CDOT planned to maintain the medians with a wildflower mixture, but the greenery quickly was overtaken by weeds. Residents complained to the city, apparently unaware CDOT oversees the medians, Lloyd said. The city received quite a few complaints about how they looked because of the weeds and stuff that had grown in there, Lloyd said. So the city approached CDOT to discuss options, which included capping the medians with stamped concrete. But doing so would have come at a considerable cost, and CDOT was concerned about water runoff. We talked at a lot of different options, Lloyd said. We kind of came to an agreement that we would do this washed river rock. The agencies agreed to share the cost, with the city paying about $2,500 for a weed barrier and rocks, and CDOT installing the materials over the course of 5 nights, April 30th through May 4th.
This is from the Canyon Country Zephyr. There's a new Monkey Wrench Gang movie rumor circulating on the internet. A website called New World Odor reports that Leonardo DiCaprio is secretly producing the film version of Edward Abbey's 1975 masterpiece somewhere in Arizona. The website has a very Onion-esque ambience to it. They include this alleged direct quote from DiCaprio. "I've been working with many of the big environmental groups for a long time. I realize now the NGOs are worthless. The only option left is direct action and militant underground tactics. I hope my movie plays a part in promoting that level of resistance." New World Odor claims that actress Olivia Munn will play Bonnie Abzug and Jack Black is cast as Hayduke. The story has not been picked up anywhere else in the media, and friends close to the late Edward Abbey, who died in 1989, have not heard a word about secret film productions with Mr. DiCaprio. After 40 years of speculation, it's difficult to take this seriously, and yet, almost from the day it was published, making the transition from the page to film seemed inevitable. But nothing happened. Some said the book was too controversial to ever become a movie, that corporate America would never tolerate a film that advocated blowing up its assets, but rumors nonetheless ran rampant. At one time or another, Robert Redford was going to produce the film and play Seldom Seen. Later gossip claimed he wanted to play Bishop Love. Shortly after Abbey's death in 1989, it was rumored that Carol Ballard, the director of the acclaimed film Never Cry Wolf, was set to direct, but it went nowhere. Over the years and decades, tales of other productions came and went. Then, in 2007, something more substantial than gossip made the local headlines. Even the Deseret News in Salt Lake City reported that at long last, Abbey's novel was coming to the screen. The film would star Matthew McConaughey, Jack Nicholson, Richard Dreyfuss, John Goodman, and Elizabeth Shue, and would be directed by Catherine Hardwicke, then noted for her work with the film series Twilight. That winter, Moab's then Economic Development Director Ken Davey invited John Stiles, the author, to meet Hardwicke as she scouted film locations in southeast Utah. He said, "We met at the Center Cafe in Moab, along with Larry Campbell of the Moab Film Commission and other members of Hardwicke's staff. It was an enlightening evening. The food, as always, was excellent, and by the time I headed home, I was convinced that making a movie version of Abbey's novel would be an unqualified disaster." Whether Hardwicke's planned film interpretation of the MWG was a consequence of studio pressures and corporate demands, or if she was just that politically correct, we'll never know. But the Monkey Wrench Gang movie was going to be a much tamer critter. Oddly, much of the ecotage described in the book survived the edits. It was a handful of social issues that gave her pause. For starters, according to Hardwicke, Seldom Seen's days as a Mormon polygamist were over. He could maintain his LDS faith, of course, but multiple wives was not going to fly. He'd have one wife, one one set of kids, and why he'd continue to be called seldom seen by his sole surviving spouse was not clear. And there was the Hayduke problem. First, his use of the F word had to go. Apparently, a PG film can only use the word once. This must have been Hardwick's motivation when she explained that in the film version, Hayduke would be roundly criticized by other members of the gang for his vulgarity, and that peer pressure would subsequently result in a less profane Hayduke. But what about the beer cans? Does he still chuck cans out of the window? Does Hayduke keep littering in the movie? Hardwick, a classic role model for today's New West environmentalist, smiled benevolently and said, "We really don't think that's appropriate either. It doesn't set a good example at all." She explained that again, Hayduke would be allowed to exhibit bad littering behavior once, but after another on-screen scolding from Doc, Seldom, and Bonnie, Hayduke grudgingly sees the errors of his ways and places his empties in a proper receptacle. A sanitized Hayduke, a monogamous Seldom. After 30 years of anticipating an honest monkey wrench gang movie, this author's personal wait was finally over. He said, "Now I hope the idea of a movie would just go away," though media reports of Hardwick's film continued for months. But slowly, for reasons unknown, Hardwick's connection to the MWG faded and finally vanished, and in 2012, the media reported that young directors Henry Joost and Ariel Schulman of Paranormal Activity fame would write and direct an adaptation of Abby's novel. That was 4 years ago. Now, in the spring of 2016, are Joost and Schulman secretly collaborating with Leonardo DiCaprio somewhere in the Arizona desert, finally bringing Abby's characters to the screen? Or is this yet another incarnation? Who knows? We'll just have to go read the book again for now.
And now the Dolores County Sheriff's Roundup for the week of May 16th through May 22nd. A town resident complaint of juveniles on a church property riding motorbikes in an unsafe manner led a deputy to respond and speak with the juveniles. Assistance was provided to a disabled tractor trailer south of town on Highway 491. 2 deputies responded to a possibly suicidal female at Groundhog Reservoir. The female was transported via ambulance to the hospital. Several county residents were contacted due to irrigation water spraying directly onto county roads. A town resident reported a vehicle traveling at an unsafe speed on town roads. The resident was concerned for safety as juveniles were playing outside. That's it for this week's Roundup. Stay tuned next week for more updates.
And for today's High Country happenings, Saturday, May 28th, learn how to ferment ordinary veggies into extraordinary foods such as sauerkraut, kimchi, or pickles during the fermentation class from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Mount Lookout Grange in Mancos. This introductory lesson teaches the basics of making simple ferments right at home, as well as the benefits of fermentation to individual and collective health. Cost is $30 per person, and all materials are provided. The class is taught by fermentation enthusiast Gretchen Grunk. She is passionate about thriving people and a thriving planet and would love to share with you on a collective journey towards vibrant health. The class is presented in collaboration with Mancos Food Share and Mount Lookout Grange. The Mancos Conservation District will offer 2 workshops on irrigation water management. The first class will take place June 7th from 10 to 1 p.m. at Road N west of Cortez, and the second workshop will take place June 14th from 10 a.m. to 1 at Road H west of Mancos. The workshops will include instruction on topics such as correctly applying water to crops, using weather data for scheduling irrigation, basic field techniques for measuring soil moisture, conserving water, protecting soil health, and proper scheduling of watering. The High Desert Conservation District and the Natural Resources Conservation Service are collaborating to offer the workshops. Lunch will be provided at the workshops, and for more information or to sign up, contact the High Desert Conservation District at 970-565-9045, extension 115. And join SolarWise Natural Building and Design the first Saturday and Sunday of June, the 4th and 5th, for a 2-day hands-on straw bale workshop. Be prepared to get straw in your pockets and mud under your fingernails. Participants will learn straw bale construction basics, stacking and shaping straw bales, and mixing and applying earthen plasters. The group will build and plaster a large outdoor straw bale wall and gain the skills to design and build their own projects. Students will also get to tour an on-site straw bale house and learn details about this unique, sustainable building style. The weekend workshop runs from 9 to 4 in Mancos, Colorado. Cost for the complete weekend is $45. Space is limited to 10 participants, so reserve your spot today by calling 970-376-3495 or emailing service@solarwisellc.com. For more information, go to their website. All of the event listings are available on our DCTV News at Noon Facebook page. If you have a suggestion, you can email us at dcbnnews@gmail.com or call us the station at 677-4 4119.
Again, thanks for tuning in. This program is aired live at noon and rebroadcast at 2:30 and 8 p.m. on Channel 32.1 Dolores County, on Channel 30.4 in Montezuma County, and their cable Channel 5.
And you can rewatch the broadcast on YouTube. Search DCTV News at Noon, and please like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
For Kendra Cook, Jerry Tope, and all those who are working to bring you DCTV and the News at Noon program from Dove Creek, USA, I'm Kelsey Kiesling. See you next time.